And we are live. Good evening, good afternoon. I hope everybody's fine outside there in the big wide world today. COVID has got us going on crazy. Oh, here goes my phone telling me that we're live. Before I introduce our guest today, I am going to get your mind wrapped around. It's quite a sensitive subject, to be fair, when you're talking about verbal or domestic violence, or even absenteeism with parents, and why the knock-on effect it is today. I'm just going to play you something and hope you can all relate to it. Check this out.
Meanwhile, there's an alarming rise in the number of domestic violence cases worldwide, especially in the UK, where police have arrested thousands. So CBS News reporter Haley Ott is following this story from London.
You just put up Stephen.
This dramatic reconstruction of domestic abuse in Ireland is part of a government campaign to highlight a growing problem during lockdown.
I was just talking to the
Countries around the world are seeing a spike in domestic violence as victims and abusers quarantine together behind locked doors. In Britain, specialist police officers answer the calls for help.
Open the door. So he's wanted for 3 assaults on his partner and his 2 children. It's a very nasty assault, it's very high risk, and it's owed to the victim to get this person in custody.
But violence isn't the only threat they're facing. Now they have to deal with the possibility of infection.
He's telling us that he's got symptoms of coronavirus and doesn't want us in the house.
But for many, sounding the alarm isn't an option. Fiona Dwyer runs a domestic violence charity in London.
So what we're seeing is that as more women and men are trapped in their homes, trapped with their abusive perpetrators, what we're seeing is that perpetrators will be using those very frequent tactics of isolation, of coercive and controlling behaviour. What we see quite often is that telephones are smashed, computers are hacked into.
Back at the house in Britain, this alleged abuser is arrested. But as some countries begin to ease their lockdowns, Dwyer says the main hurdle for charities like hers is still to come.
Do you think it's going to get worse?
Absolutely. I mean, we are preparing as an organisation for the huge increase in demand post-lockdown. We know that our services are going to be overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed, she says, because for many, it could finally be safe outside to flee the danger at home. Haley Ott, CBS News, London.
That brings me shivers. Now, even though that we're talking, as I said, it's a very sensitive subject, and even though we are talking about domestic violence in lockdown, it's not just in lockdown. This is domestic violence in its entirety. Also, we're going to talk about verbal abuse, which is a form of domestic violence. And as the show goes on, we'll steep into absenteeism and why we have some men or female feel the need to be violent towards their partners, even their family, their siblings. It's quite difficult to be honest with you. Now, this is part 2 of part 1. So anyone who saw part 1, I hope they know that we have the same guys have come back to join me on part 2. And without no further ado, I'm going to introduce my first guest, who is Dr. Rachel Gow. And I'm going to bring her in. Rachel, are you here?
Hey, yeah.
How are you doing?
Here today again. Yeah.
I know. And how's things been with you?
Yeah, really well. Work's really busy. Yeah, lots going on.
Quick synopsis. Just tell everybody what you do.
So I'm a registered nutritionist, and I also qualified as a child neuropsychologist at King's College London, specialising in conditions such as ADHD, dyslexia, autism. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'm going to show the viewers this, which I'll bring it back at the end as well. But she's just written a new book called Smart Food for ADHD and Brain Health. And everything that I've just said there literally still attached to domestic violence, HDAD, domestic violence, verbal abuse. But we'll touch on that a little bit later, and I'm sure you'll correct me, because that is absolutely right. All of that still plays into the same the ethos of domestic violence. My second guest, I love her to bits, Miss Aquas. Not that I don't love Rachel, I love Rachel. So in other words, let me just say this, I love all my guests. I have the fabulous, who absolutely cracked us up the last time. If anyone saw the show reel that we put up previously, she had us in stitches. I know it's a serious note, but I'm sure she's going to throw some gems in there today. I've got the fabulous Franchesca Pingman, and she's also, I would say, the healing table Accurate, the owner of. Please join us, my darling. How are you?
Evening.
How are you?
I'm all right, I'm blessed.
You're still in the office, aren't you?
Yes, right. How do you know? I'm two-tiering myself. So I go to one and come out. I'm two-tiering on my own.
Oh, wow. That's dedication for you, because it's 7 o'clock and you're still in the office. Good Lord. Do you know what I mean? But that's dedication. I'm sure I know you've got another session to do after when I'm finished. So we're going to try and make this one a really quick session today, but make it in depth. Finally, where's my Rhyana? I have Rhyana Ebank-Babbs, and she's the owner of planveg.co.uk. She's a counsellor, but I'm going to actually, I didn't tell Franchesca to please introduce yourself. How dare I?
Do you know, I'm not even offended. It gets like that. It gets like that. So good evening, everybody. I'm a counsellor, therapist, healer. Call me what you want. I'm just me.
Okay. You're not.
I hold an event called the Healing Table. It'll be on tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Facebook Live. Feel free to join in. And tomorrow's topic is actually, are you okay? But are you really okay?
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Rhyana, are you there, my lovely? I can see you perking, and I'm making sure that your internet is bang. She's here.
Hello.
My final guest is here, Rhyana Ebank-Babbs. Rhyana, please tell everyone what you do while I'm sweating my bits off here again.
Oh, bless you. Okay, so hi, I'm Rhyana. I'm Rhyana. I'm an independent advocate for human rights charity. And as Valerie said, I am the owner of Plan, Wholesome Empowerment Group, which is, I'd say, a personal development and emotional development service.
Fantastic. Welcome, ladies. Lovely to have you back here again. Lovely. The subject this time is it's very delicate, and we're going to try and see if there's anything we can offer anyone out there, what advice we can give them, or what's the insight that we've seen. And that's the topic of today's show. Before I actually go in, which is what I said to you guys earlier, I'm going to play something else to the audience, but the audience need to understand that this is a reenactment and it's 2 minutes. So we just want you to get a gist of where we're going. And it's not, please folks, this is not all about color. This is a black and white across the world issue. It happens in every household. So take a look at this.
I'm just here with this punk in. You mean what punk? I only live with one punk in this house. Imagine, I just come back from football and I got a sandwich. Swear down! Yeah, that's because your girl looks after you, bruv.
Swear down.
No. And she got a cheek to be wearing my shirt. She down like she's washing up, but there's not even nothing to wash up, there's nothing in the house, there's nothing ever in the car, nothing in the fridge. I don't even know why I made her move in with me, bro, to be honest.
So why don't you go and do some shopping?
Yeah, bro. What? No, I thought she just answered me back. No,
I did. I said, why don't you go and do some shopping?
Hold on a minute, external line. What did you say?
said, why don't you go and
So
do
you
some
answer me
shopping?
back. You're good for nothing. You don't do nothing in the house. You're washing up and there's nothing to wash up. Yeah? You're offering me sandwiches. Yeah? And stupid bloody Red Bull. What does it look like I even drink that?
So why don't you do it?
You know I'm trying to get big out here.
So why don't you do it? Why don't you do anything? Why do it with me?
Keep your mouth closed. Yeah? You're only good for one thing.
One thing?
I don't even know if you're good for that even, man.
Why do you treat me this? Why? What have I ever done to you for you to treat me like this?
Oh, blood, stay on the line. What? What? Who are you talking to, man? Who are you talking to? Shut up! Catch yourself answering me back. Are you crazy?
Leave me alone.
What do you mean leave me alone? Answer me back now. Go on. Answer me back then. Huh? What, you ain't got nothing to say now? How do you like eating crusty bread? Huh? You're in the house all day, but yet still you're putting on makeup. Does it look like you're going anywhere? Huh? Now look what you made me do with my bread on the line. Yeah? You're stupid. You're good for nothing. And I told you already about this weave in my house. I don't like it, innit? Yeah? So you can go and take my stupid girl. Yeah? The next time you answer me back, you see this? You see this? Stop crying. You know what? You know what? I'm gonna leave you today, innit? The next time I'm gonna beat you like a baby, you hear me? Stupid girl. Hurry up and come here, man! Did you hear what I said? So come in this room now! You know what time it is? I rate you if I have to call you one more time.
Okay. Yeah, silence. What can you say? What can you say? It is something that happens quite often, guys. And even though that's a reenactment, let me just take that off, caption off. It was a reenactment. I don't know if you've ever come across anybody that's had that and what you did. You know, did you do anything about it? Have you spoken up? Have you had to take someone away from that environment? The first question I'm going to ask you guys is, and I'm going to put it up on the screen so everyone can see it, is what is domestic abuse? To be honest, domestic abuse is not always violent, physical violence. It can also, as you can see, it's coercion, control, gaslighting. You can see that, guys, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to throw this out at you. Rachel, this is to you. What do you class as domestic abuse? And on those subjects that I've just put up, what do you think?
I think it can be all of the above, for sure. I think it can happen over a period of time, so that the victim becomes or develops a kind of learned self-helplessness. So they become conditioned to, whether it's verbal abuse or intimidation or whatever the type of abuse it is. And I think it can be extremely difficult for that person to leave the relationship, even though they want to and have intentions to. I think the conditioning can be so powerful that it can leave them in this kind of codependent, toxic relationship that they find it impossible to break free from.
Franchesca, what's your take on that?
So I you know how I look at things? I look at things all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
So even just watching the video and listening to him talk, I'm not gonna focus on Rachel, who was on the floor. I'm gonna focus on the male character.
Okay.
Because he alone has his own issues. I'm not condoning what he did, but I want to also highlight that could be a learned behavior.
Good.
He might be neglected. He might actually feel so he doesn't even feel like a man. That's the only way he could feel like.
There's definitely a little feedback going, and I'm not sure. Again,
I'm fine. I can't hear you.
Yeah.
I can hear you now. Yeah.
just slightly. So I'm hoping that's not affecting anybody else out there. No one is saying anything. If anyone can give me a heads up, if everything sounds all right out there, that'd be really, really good. I think EastEnders might be on or something. So it's throwing everybody off. Sorry about that. So yes, you were saying you're focusing on the young man himself.
Normally, again, with the abuser, I'm not saying female abuse men too. So that's another thing I'm putting out there. There's women out there that actually abuse men. But what I'm trying to say is there's also an element of when you meet a guy or you meet a female and these elements come as red flags, we as people tend to wash them over. And for me, I deal with clients who've been abused. And the first thing they always said is, oh, I knew they were like this, but I never thought they'll do it to me.
Right. Rhyana, what's your take?
It's a difficult one because I can kind of give first-hand experience. But what I will say in regards to definition-wise is that domestic violence is usually what's experienced within the home. So although what the enactment showed was between a man and a woman, it's also about being mindful that it could be woman towards man, child towards parent as well.
Absolutely.
Just things that I'm seeing a lot more is a lot of domestic violence abuse towards parents. So yeah, it's looking at, as Franchesca said, all angles. And again, what Rachel said, the toxicity, the enmeshment, the lack of boundaries is just an acceptable and a standardization for how the relationship continues.
Right.
And then just intensifies, and the vulgarity of it gets worse. So it's a big one.
I mean, do you also find that where the person, as male or female, has either been abused before, has got into another relationship and are used to having abuse? Does that make sense? So they're used to toxicity. They're used to being verbally, throwing back words. So someone who is just the same as they are, they forget about there's children in the manor. They'll probably forget about family or people around. It's concentrated on just them. What do you say to people like that? What do you think you can give advice to people like that?
They've got to, first of all, acknowledge that it's abuse. They might say that he loves me, she loves me.
Which they do all the time, though.
If you go back to those who's been kidnapped, and been kept in captive for years, the first thing they'll say is, I don't want to go to prison because they love me.
Very true.
The first and foremost thing for me is acknowledging that it's abuse.
Okay. Acknowledging the abuse.
Yeah.
Rachel, you're going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think oftentimes children who are exposed to domestic violence growing up, or if they're quite harshly physically disciplined, it can become normalized. So basically your parenting is the most sort of powerful, computer-like programming you are ever exposed to in the world. And that becomes embedded within your psyche. So children, we know already there are so many psychological experiments who have demonstrated the effect of modeling, that children model and copy and mimic adults' behavior. So I think that increases risk for later potential for further domestic violence within relationships.
Rhyana, your take? See, I could see it's really deep for you. Like, OMG. You don't have, if you don't want to, I mean, please don't. But
no, it's fine. I'm just thinking, because I can honestly say, as a child growing up, I was beaten. Yeah, I'll just put it out there. I was beaten as a child. And as a form of discipline or chastisement, when you can just go a bit too far. I myself, I don't say that I have modeled that behavior because I don't hit my child. I know, and I've learned better ways of parenting. But I think what it has done, or what it did do before I knew about healthy relationships and what an actual healthy relationship looked like and felt like. I looked for that kind of, I looked to that as a model of what a relationship is meant to be. So that was my referencing point. So that's how I can say it influenced me in regards to my adult relationships rather than me passing that on to my child, if that makes sense.
It does. But that's easier said than done. So at least you've recognized it. Rachel, you recognized it. Franchesca, you've recognized it. But, unfortunately, there are people who have been raped within their family by uncles, cousins, fathers, and they've tried to speak to mother or even, listen, there's females that has raped females, I'm telling you, there's been mate, I'm telling you, females have raped females. I don't know how that's even possible, but I know it.
Yeah.
And that physical abuse right from the get-go is a lash. I think it's it's a backlash. So you go into another relationship thinking it's okay to be abused. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Victimhood mindset.
Exactly. You're going in with that mindset and it's okay. You think it's okay. What I find is the knock-on effect is when you get older.
Because it depreciates in your self-esteem.
Right.
And I think what I can honestly say is that when you've been in something for so long, and even when if you eventually get out, it can make you feel as though that's all you're worth. And it can take a very, very long time for you to understand that, again, that's not what life is meant to be like. That's not what love is actually meant to be.
Okay.
As Rachel said, it could be conditioned responses, but at the same time, if you've not been shown or received or even accepted love in different ways, you wouldn't know what the difference looks like, what the other scale looks like.
I agree completely. And I think also, especially for girl children, that they seek out partners who often reflect their own parenting. So how their father was with them, they then unconsciously seek out a partner who delivers those same traits, even if they might be toxic. Say, for example, your father was, maybe emotionally unavailable or critical, cold, judgmental. You are actually repeating that programming without even realizing, and you're attracting the same partners who treated you in the same way
right
your father treated you. So that's also a common phenomenon. And it's oftentimes those children that don't have enough self-love and self-care and self-worth, so they have low self-esteem, maybe because of a result of not receiving the parental investment that they deserved as a child, that also makes them at risk for seeking out partners unwittingly who will then deliver more of the same programming.
What advice would you give to people who are constantly verbally gaslight? I mean,
can I switch up a bit? I need to switch up. I need to switch up just a little bit.
Go for it.
I'm from African heritage, right? So when I was doing my training about, you get a beat, you get this, you get punishments, yeah. And in my training, we discussed this, and they asked me if we've got punishment positions that we have, and the whole class stood up, and I didn't stand up because I didn't feel like it was a stress position. I had to, and I was there's only about 3 black people in the whole class, and they asked me why didn't I feel that it was in a stress position. I said because we made light of what it was. Right. So I'm not even going to sit here and say I didn't punish my children. I punished my children. Right. Yellow pages was our friend. I didn't hit them with the yellow pages, but there's a certain African punishment that if you're African, you know about it.
Yeah, I didn't hit them with the yellow pages,
I didn't hit them with the yellow pages, but you're going to learn today. And what I learned from that was my parents only learned from their parents.
Right.
And they weren't open enough to have these conversations that we are now permitted to have.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I can't blame my parents for their parenting because they were doing the best they could at that time.
With the trauma.
And it's a knock-on effect.
And the only reason why I say that is because I wasn't brought up here.
Right. Okay.
I always remind people, if I decided to call Childline in Ghana, good luck. Who's coming? Where? Childline? The number's engaged. We ain't got one. No, but this is fact.
See,
this is fact. Go on.
The thing is, I agree with you to some degree, right? And I get where there's a whole heap of cultural differences. Yeah. But my stance still remains that once you've got the capacity to know better, you do better.
And that's why I said they didn't have the capacity. This is what I'm saying to you. I've got the capacity. You've got the capacity. Because don't get twisted. I've got an elder one and she got a little bit. And then I had training. I'm a little bit older than you. So it took me to check myself and say, but why am I dashing this out of my girl? She deserves it, but I could talk to her. And then when you give birth to somebody who's just like you, you're thinking what used to work for you, but it doesn't work for her.
Yeah. It's a difficult one.
It is a difficult one. Okay, so we've gone from knowing that domestic abuse or even any form of emotional abuse starts from childhood.
Yeah. Childhood trauma.
It's
on both sides.
Or both sides.
Yeah, so the boy may have been exposed again to a lot of, physical beatings and physical discipline, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, and also with holding of love.
Right.
The withholding of love and affection from a mother to a boy child is then going to play out in his relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, it stems from there, and I'm going to throw myself in the mix because I'm only trying to direct it. And I grew up in a family that didn't beat us. We had a great family. What I did have was my grandmother was a really, an authoritarian, or would you call it authoritarian, right?
Authoritarian.
Yeah, authoritarian. She just ruled with a rod. God rest her soul. And I'm glad for that teaching that she gave me. But the one thing that when I'm growing up, I was taken away from boys. You can't be around boys. And this is an old school way of we were brought up. So you didn't really know about sexuality. You were kept away from it. It wasn't taught in school. And I didn't live with my father. I didn't live with my dad. So I'm going deep. Again, I'm going to just stand in my truth. I'm just going to say as it is. But I lived with my uncle, and he was a great teacher, and I love him to this day. I still run to him after how many years for advice. But when a man gave me any attention, because I didn't have that father figure, I felt that that's the attention I needed. Does that make sense, man?
That's very common.
Yeah, it felt like that. Oh, is that what a man's appreciation is supposed to be? So it took me to go through, not through a lot of it. I started to become very like, I'm not sure about this because my grandmother said, you're a Christian, you can't be like this. So I've got to just be careful of what I'm doing. But at the same time, it made me, when I grew up, part frigid. And I was always seeking validation from a man to make me feel whole. And I know I'm not alone in that scenario. It took me years to find myself and understand that don't blame my folks for how they decided to bring me up. My mother got pregnant when she was young. My grandmother got pregnant when she was young. So, and they all had some form of violence that went on. It was a taboo to talk about these things when they were growing up. Now we have a platform to break the cycle. Break that cycle. Some people have been raped in their families and they've never talked about it. They say it takes a village to raise a child. That village was not raising any child. They were hiding it. They were hiding it. Nobody's saying anything. And they've left those children or adults of now to try and find a way to survive. I've ended up in relationships where guys have raped them, or someone's tried to rape them. You're telling them no, but they're still having it. And you feel that you're not strong enough to tell them, can you not do this? Stop it. Don't. Get off. Please. Do you understand what I'm saying? But at the same time, no matter how much you're fighting them, you're thinking, do you know what? I'm going to have to be subdued and just let them get on with it. And then when they've done it, I'm going to hide. Let me tell you, it's happening regularly. It happens regularly. Now, the guy who does that, they think it's okay because the woman has not reported them. The woman is so ashamed of what she's done or what's happened to her, she won't report it. And as a matter of fact, it will happen again and again.
That's why the laws were changed so that the police now take it away from the victim. So they no longer have a right to choose whether or not they want to prosecute. Once it's been reported, you know, 999, distress call, whatever it is, and the police turn up, they can take it upon themselves to arrest that perpetrator without any consent whatsoever from the victim. And I think, you know, that was important to change it like that.
It's taken years to get there, Rachel.
Yeah, I know.
Guys, it's taken years to get to that. Even though there's a lady in the press at the moment who is saying that she's still not happy with what you've given because she has been, you know, systematically abused. But it took years for her to fight to let them understand that even though you physically cannot see the punches, she's still getting it verbally.
That's right, because victims often become completely submissive, you know, in the sense that they don't have, you know, if they're treated as if they are owned or a property or objectified in that way, that becomes embedded in how they feel about themselves as well. And it's very hard for domestic violence victims to speak up and confide in.
It's also, there's the element of fight or flight. There's an element of shame. There's an element of, I need to go to court and talk about this again. I really need to rehash this again. Why do I need to do this again? Why don't you believe me? There's so many different elements. Yeah. But as we're talking on the topic of abuse has increased since COVID. Yeah. I don't know why the government don't want to address it, but it's up to them. But it's not just abuse, as Rhyana said. There's a lot of children abusing parents. You know, the neglect element has heightened. The neglect element has been heightened, but it's not. It's a shameful topic.
It is.
You know, anybody who tuned in to our last session to now, this is a whole different energy.
Yeah.
The energy that we are all holding right now is a whole different energy, because we've all got our own little personal stuff going on that we're thinking of. You know, I always used to say, I've been single for a while. Men didn't come to my house because I know what it's like when men are around your house and they don't belong in your house.
Yeah.
You know, not saying anything, but
disrespectful.
But you think about it, you know, and the reason why it's come to the forefront now, and we can talk about it now, is because we've been given and permitted to have platforms and conversations. And yes, it's taken 10 years, 20 years, 100 years later. But if we don't talk about it, we'll be where we were in 1997.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
That has to be had.
Which brings me then, now that we're in lockdown, because lockdown seems to have heightened it even more. Lockdown has made you aware that there are people, because I speak about this in my podcast show, and there are people who are in relationships who actually probably didn't have domestic violence per se. So they've gone, you know, because you're at work during the day, aren't you? And so both parties have gone to work, they get home, one will put the child to bed, the other, you know, they'll have a drink, not much is said, they'll have a few little words, but there's children. Let's just say that there's children here. But what happens is you're now on top of each other. You can't move. You're in probably the 2 up, 2 down. You're in a flat. Everything's all on one level. You're on top of each other now. Do you understand? And for the first time, you probably realize that you have nothing in common.
Having to relearn each other all over again.
But instead of relearning each other, you're frustrated with each other.
You might not even like the person anymore. I don't like you.
Yeah. I don't like them anymore. And so where do you go? Because you're now being told that you've got to stay in your own pods. You're told that you can't book into a hotel. And so the abuse now heightens. Some people are experiencing abuse for the first time ever. What advice, Rhyana, I'm throwing it out there at you. What advice could you give people like that?
First of all, I'll say actually speak to someone. Like, even if it is just a friend, if you're not sure, and I think that's usually where it comes from, especially with the gaslighting element, you tend to not be sure if you're actually going through abuse and you start questioning things.
Absolutely.
Where I think it really starts is when you start questioning your own sanity and questioning the actual actions. Start monitoring and speak to your friends and see if it's actually something normal or maybe something that they may be going through or something. Because if you've not experienced it before, you may not know that this is a red flag, and it could be the major red flag that you're actually either ignoring or missing.
Yeah.
But I'd also say there's loads and loads of Facebook groups, Instagram pages and things like that can give you a whole load of
I'm going to bring some up
tips.
Yeah,
some useful tips and information about the signs, what to look out for, the types of behaviors that you may be experiencing yourself as well. And one other thing I'd say, always create a plan of safety.
I'm going to come to that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
So with all of those resources that you've been looking into, jot them down somewhere and find out how you can get in contact with someone really quickly. Because especially if you're in an emergency situation where, for example, your phone is unavailable to you, what can you do next?
Yeah.
So get to know your neighbors, get to know the people around you. If you're not able to get to a phone, you can go and knock on someone's door, for example, if it's cool. But there's so many different types of tips that can be given in the different types of domestic violence scenarios. So we could be here for quite a while.
No, for sure. And I've got those that I'm going to bring down at the back end of this conversation, which you touched on it, which is like, you've been in the home and you can't run anywhere. I don't want to use lockdown as just the scenario, because it's not just in lockdown this is happening. And I'm going to go back to what I just threw up on the screen just a while ago, which is here. Let's see if I got it. It's patterns of behavior of abuse can be even more subtle and insidious than the ones mentioned right here. So fair enough, gaslighting is very common amongst people who are very abusive. Alcohol plays a very major role for that, guys. Alcohol would turn anybody absolutely. And I'm not saying it because I'm definitely going to do a program on alcoholics. I'm an ex, and I'm going to say it, and I don't want to say I shouldn't, but I'm an ex-alcoholic, and I had to tell myself that. So at least I actually said it out loud on internet air. I'm an ex-alcoholic. Do you know what I'm saying to you? And I had to say that to get to where I am today. But it's the number one thing that shields and inoculate yourself against is being sucked into a bad relationship. And you've got to learn how to tune your body and to know how it feels. But people are writing those things, but you can't, because you think the person loves you.
Should we discuss like a little bit about gaslighting? Because some people may not know.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah.
Because gaslighting is not really well understood.
Well,
I think maybe we'll go round. I mean,
no. I want you to. This is what this is.
I mean, it's kind of when someone is being quite cool to you, but calling you out at the same time. So, like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing that? Or you're crazy. Do you know that? Or there's something wrong with you. You need to go and get help. It's all those kind of things. Perhaps you guys have some other examples. It's when they make you question yourself, and it's a persistent pattern over time that breaks you down, and you start questioning yourself. You're like, there must be something wrong with me, or I'm unlovable, I must be flawed in some way, because, you know, I'm always treading on eggshells, I can't do anything right, this person's on at me all the time, or withholding love from me, withholding affection from me, you know, deliberately as a form of punishment. And it's a very subtle form of abuse which leaves horrendous scars and can take years to recover from, and only really with professional help or a recognition of what happened, like actually going, wow, did that really happen to me? And the fact that you've allowed it to happen without wanting it to happen. But in a sense, it's like they say, you know, what you allow will continue, because it does continue, and you are so trapped in this bubble.
Yeah.
And you're so confused because you don't really understand what's going on, and that's gaslighting in a nutshell.
Anybody else have any other, Franchesca?
The thing with gaslighting again is the person tends to know your insecurities and what makes you vulnerable, and they store it up. And what they do is they will come at you in such a nice way. You know, you used to say that people said you were ugly. Do you know, I always thought you were beautiful, but now I really do see the ugly side of you.
Right.
They've dished you so hard.
Yeah.
But then you're thinking, I'm not lovable. Nobody else will love me.
Right.
And the thing with, as people say, gaslighting, is that we all have battles within. And if we didn't have battles within, there would be no battle outside.
Great
so
point.
The self-love and the self-care that we have to install in ourselves, even before we even try to go into certain situations, you know, it's like going to battle with somebody and having no shield.
It's a losing
because they already know.
Yeah, you'll never win against narcissists ever.
Ever.
All your feelings, and you are always
look at you.
Commodity.
Oh, you're feeling strong today. Oh, you're feeling strong today, are you? Oh, you're feeling, you know. And what I saw something, and it was a video. This lady was being abused, and what she did is the postman turned up, and she said, "Oh, this is not my letter. I'll run and give it back to the postman." So she ran back to give it to the postman and gave him another letter. And when he opened it up, he said, "Help me. Please call the police."
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah.
I was even going to mention that before. Sorry, it's not.
That's fine.
But unnoticeable tactics that you can use to notify for help. But yeah.
That's deep. You know, and that is one way. I'm hoping that somebody will see that and understand that if you can't call your mobile, and I'll give the scenarios of how you can report your you know, domestic violence, whether it be male or female, because there are female agitators out there. It's just that it seems like it's always the men that does this. It really just isn't. And also we should
men don't report it.
Sorry?
Men don't report it.
No, exactly. I can. Years ago, when I worked in the law fraternity, and I can't call any names just for legal reasons, there were cases of men who finally stood up. This is quite some time ago, and we had to convince him that he needed to go to court because this guy was doing everything he possibly could for this woman. They had 2 children, and she took every ounce of her anger that she could and beat the hell out of him on a daily basis. And when he called the police didn't believe him.
That's really sad.
The police didn't believe him. The police thought, she's a woman. She's like, I think she was quite small, but she had a stroke of an ox. And she could throw a right hook, a left hook. She knows she could hit you with things, but there was no scar on her. He had busted lips, everything, and the police didn't believe him. In the end, he had advice, came to a solicitor's and said, look, the police aren't going to help me. I need your help. And the firm that I work for, that's how we ended up having to give him the satisfaction. And they didn't have a male refuge. There wasn't a male refuge for him to run to. So I'm speaking for everybody out there. Now, we've been speaking about male and female. Do you know that there are kids abusing their parents in their home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really difficult subject, and it's happening more and more and more. And it's not being spoken about and it's not being addressed, but oftentimes it's teenagers who may be experimenting with different drugs and then having terrible mood swings, or they've got, you know, quite chronic ADHD, so that means that they're going to be more impulsive. They're not going to be able to sort of inhibit their reactions. They'll basically act and then think. But yeah, it's really big right now.
I think it just goes down to unmet needs in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Emotionally unmet needs, financially unmet needs, socially unmet needs. It's unmet needs that's not being spoken about. And it's like, I call it a pressure cooker. So those of you that know what a pressure cooker is, it's a pot that you do long cooking, and you know, you've got to do those tough meats in, and you leave it on for ages and it steams up, and then you've got to loosen the top and it whistles a little bit. But if you don't let out the steam in the top, it can explode. That is what I kind of see.
Do you not think it's a lack of respect and a generational thing, like with the millennials, where there's such a focus on individualism and entitlement and what I want kind of attitude?
Yeah.
I don't respect you. I don't care about your rules. It's like it's an oppositional, defiant kind of approach to not respecting your parents.
Yeah.
Especially because you're not allowed to physically discipline your kids. You're not allowed to.
Yeah, because they're quick to call social services.
Not in my house. But anyway. Not in my house.
You know,
but even
I was hit all the time. I was very naughty. You know, basically, and also some of us had the kind of, like you said, Valerie, the religious connotations as well, that kind of kept your moral compass, if you like. Because I remember I was constantly told, you know, I was raised as a Roman Catholic. I'm not religious at all now in that sense. I believe in God, but I don't have a religion I subscribe to. But I was told anything I did would be a sin. You know, God's watching you. You can't get away with anything. So I think, you know, times have changed so much now.
Yeah.
I saw something pop up and said absent fathers.
Yes.
And this thing, right?
Yes.
On this, I'm going to say, and some people don't agree with me, some people agree with me. It's whatever. Absent fathers need to stop being blamed for a lot of stuff. Because my children's fathers aren't in their life, but they have male role models that are doing an exquisite job. Some absent fathers are absent due to the mother's behavior. Some absent fathers are dead, incarcerated, whatever. But what I'm trying to say is we need to stop focusing on he's like that, she's like that because of the absent father. No, because there's still there's grandparents. There's grandparents, there's male role models. There's Rhyana actually works with a company called the Womanhood Academy, and there's a Manhood Academy. It's up to us now as a community to stop saying, oh, he's like that because he hasn't got a dad. I work in a school. When I hear that, I want to say something.
Well, this is why you guys are here, to introduce another, you know, to let people know that there is a format out there. Now, the chat room is going absolutely crazy, which is brilliant. We've had someone that said, you know, or having suffered trauma and not had the right support, so many children fall through the gap and they don't know where to go with it if it's not been acknowledged. Guys, what do you say to that?
Ray, over to you. Rhyana's got quite a few different contacts where there's so much help out there. There is so much help out there, but there's pride, ego that holds parents back to even try and get the help.
Literally. So there's so many spaces. As Franchesca said, I volunteer for a service called the Womanhood Academy, and they have a partner service called the Manhood Academy. And what they do is, one, support the young people with developing a conscious around how you're being a well-rounded individual, but also they take them through a rites of passage to understand conflict resolution, healthy relationships, entrepreneurship even, but just building yourself. And then we also have a parenting space where we speak about some of the issues that maybe, you know, people are experiencing with their child as well. And just to kind of fold back on what you were saying about the men and what support they need. What I'm noticing is that there's so many services that's targeted at men and suicide and mental health right now.
Right.
There needs to be a unison of how these services are being operated, because even again, with the Manhood Academy, they've developed a men's space only for the dads because, again, as Franchesca said, absenteeism isn't always the man's fault. No. It may be that they've been pushed out. It may be that they've had to even go away for work. They may have their own things that they're battling with themselves, but at the same time, the support to facilitate that reintegration back into the family isn't really there. So that's why these services are so important, because it not only develops the child, it develops the whole family and the individual as a parent. So I would say
amazing, Rhyana.
Yeah. Thanks, Adele. She says that sounds amazing. Thank you for that, Adele. And if there's anyone in the chat room that wants to, you know, reach out to these guys or Rhyana to get any more information, even if it doesn't relate to yourself per se,
someone could use it.
Someone that you could take this information and pass it on to them. I think this is the time now that we need to stop feeling ashamed of what happened to us. We need to stop feeling ashamed and blaming ourselves for things that have happened, because it's never too late to change, you know. And as someone has just said in this chat room, single dads aren't
absolutely
either over here. Absent mothers. So, and you know, she said she's a good, you know, a godmother. So, you know, good luck, chap. She's saying. Thanks for that, Trinity. That's an amazing comment right there. And this is what, you know, Rhyana was just saying. There is support for everybody now. It's, are these people prepared to take it?
Yeah. That's also, it's the person's choice to do this as well. You can provide all the services you want. You can't make them use them. So it's first starting off with admitting that you need the help and admitting that there's a problem. Until you do that, you can have every service involved. Same like when people have referred to social services, you can have every service involved and it not make a difference because you don't want it to make a difference. So yeah, it's one of those things where once you get to that point where you know that you need the help and you're willing to accept it, that's when the change can happen.
But what happens if there's no self-esteem? Because there are a lot of people who have lost their self-esteem.
It's the ego.
They don't feel that they are worth saving. And what they forget is that even if they're being beaten verbally or with a narcissist, their self-esteem is so shot to pieces that they feel that they're ashamed of reaching out. What, you know, how can we assure people that if you want to hide but still have the help, how can we assure them? Please tell me, so one of you, what would you think? Enlighten me. Because I
want to go first, but I want to give someone else a chance to go first.
What did you say? They need their help, but they're...
Basically, I'm saying that there are people out there that are so ashamed of what they've been through. And even though that there are services to help them, they don't want people to know.
Yeah.
They forget that they'll probably smoke, they'll probably drink, they'll do everything to feel and stay in their cocoon. But what they feel is there's a sign that people are watching. Their children are seeing this.
It's the coping mechanism. It's the coping mechanism that they've formed within themselves. And to be honest with you, the coping mechanism is always a challenge. I have clients who come for counselling and I see them walk up to my door and walk away. They walk up to my door and they walk away because they're fighting. The battle again is still within. The battle again is still, I really want to see this therapist, but I can't. Do people know she's a therapist? And 9 out of 10 times, I always say to my clients, my neighbours don't know what I do for a living. So just come, because once you come and you speak to one person, that opens the floodgates. I've been using this term a lot. Stay liquid. Stay liquid. Find, as we said, find somebody you can confide in.
Yeah. Help them go with you. They could be a chaperone.
You know, or they could even stand outside.
Yeah.
But no matter if you feel embarrassed,
it takes courage to ask for help. Like courage.
But it's a double-edged sword, because even though you were talking about the people who are scared and fearful, you've also got the people that are proud and their ego won't let them ask for help. And those people tend to be a little bit more dangerous.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're wrong and you're strong.
Yes. So I'm going to take the beating and I'm still strong.
Literally.
Yeah. Tonight when I get home, I'm going to firm it. I'm going to take it, go to my bed, put my makeup on, and tomorrow life continues.
I think childhood trauma underlies most mental health conditions. We know that any type of trauma during childhood increases risk for addiction, for self-harm, for eating disorders, for depression, for anxiety. And the thing is, a person who's suffered childhood trauma is also going to have very low self-esteem and really struggle to ask for help. But it's only until you have courage to ask for help that healing can begin.
With there. Sorry, Rachel, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's it. I was just saying it takes such bravery to kind of live up to traumas, past traumas from your childhood, because a lot of people lock it away in a cognitive box and they're scared to even open that door ajar. They don't want to deal with it, and then it manifests in problematic behaviors such as addictions or, you know, depression or anxiety or some sort of mental health condition. So I would just urge anyone to, you know, reach out to some of these agencies that Rhyana spoke about. There is help out there. And I salute you because it takes such courage and strength to ask for help. So yeah,
it really, really does. So now I've touched on ask for help. Don't be ashamed. You know, there is something. God, forgive me what I'm going to say. Have you had, or I've seen people who don't, when someone has asked for their help, and someone actually belittles them. Because they're not in the same, they've not experienced it. Their life is okay, or they're hiding behind a bad scenario themselves. They will belittle you. Now I know there are people out there that have been belittled. Franchesca, you're laughing. What are you laughing?
I'm
Tell me.
Because culturally, if you think you're bad enough and you're going to tell your auntie, "Oh, today my husband slapped me," and so.
Yeah. You know, I'm not
going to look after you. I'm not going to put a roof over your head and your 4 children's head that you've made with your husband who's boxing you. So, Joe, the best thing for you to do is go back to where you got boxed.
Culturally, it is so true. Do you understand? I know of cultured families.
I was speaking to my friend and I said to him, I want to hold an event in Ghana. And this is my male friend. And you know, he told me, don't do it. Don't do it. You don't need to come and empower ladies. And I was like, Bob, why not? He said, please don't do it. And I said, I'll do it. And he's like, no, because people will leave their husbands. I said, why is that?
God, sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
Because do you understand? It is something that we don't talk about. And it's not just the African community. There's loads of other communities out there. I've seen boys speak to their mums and they're from a different culture. And I saw a boy speak to his mum. And my son said to me, Mum, don't get involved. And my body, I was like...
Sorry.
You know, I'm like Rhyana. I picked the boy up. I said to the boy, don't you ever talk to your mum like that? And as I got off the bus, my boy must say, Mum, you know, one day somebody's going to box you. I said, I'll wait for that day. I should have minded.
Because it's true. If you don't correct someone, who is going to do it? And they're going to continue thinking it's acceptable to act in that way. Like, you still represent yourself and your family when you're out on the street. When I was growing up, I knew damn sure none of my family, none of my parents' friends, they ain't gonna see me doing nothing. I'm not gonna be anywhere I'm not supposed to be. Like, I will hold a beating on the street if that was the case, and that has happened before.
But so I was saying about this, and we can only speak from our own experiences or the people that's come through your door. And Rachel, I know that you probably will identify, but there are people who didn't grow up with their parents. They didn't grow up with parents. They were either in an orphanage, or the parents, you know, let them live with uncles and aunties. And so the trauma of not being with your actual parent, and I'm talking about male and female here, can be catastrophic. Because what happens is, and from what I see, and with my own 2 eyes, and I'm hoping that Rachel will jump in and explain if that's what she saw. They act out. They're really not like that, but they act out because they're asking for someone to notice them. They want someone to reach out to them, but it's got to the point where it's probably so late that they're in the system that by the time you get to them, they're beating their mothers, they're beating their brothers, they're beating anyone that they can get because they're so angry. That's where I think some of the domestic violence comes from. Now, I don't know if anyone else can agree with me on that.
To a degree.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
No, all I was going to say is children that are adopted, often there are 2 different types when they're placed with a new family. There's the compliant one who can't do more to comply because they're terrified that they're going to be abandoned again.
Yeah.
And then there's the acting out child who will do all they can to test the boundaries because they can't possibly believe that you love them or you really want them. So that they're going to be terribly behaved because they are almost carrying out a self-fulfilled prophecy of I'll reject you before you get a chance.
Me, right.
And that's why so many foster placements break down and why so many, there becomes difficulties within adopted families for those reasons. Yeah.
No, I agree. What do you think, Rhyana?
Well, I can give a different experience because I used to work in a residential care home that supported young people leaving care. And a lot of the young people that I worked with, they just knew how to play the system because the system enabled them to do so. And I will be very honest there, that it's built up to enable them to do so. And as much as, they have gone through so much and there is a sense of entitlement because of you going through so much, there is a sense that I don't need to pay for anything. There's a sense of anything I do, people are going to be there to help me.
Yeah.
That's not building rounded human beings. That's just building a dependent individual.
Sure.
And I think, again, as much as it's good to have all these services come in and help, having too much services, again, means that you become so reliant on social services or your youth offending officer, or basically you don't build the dependency skills on yourself, the independent skills for yourself to just live a fulfilled life. A lot of the kids that I knew, we had to teach them how to use a cash machine or teach them how to use a washing machine, stuff like that. But yeah, that's my opinion on it.
Okay. Franchesca's just joined us back. We've got 15 minutes to probably just catch up. So, because I know you guys have got something at 9. You probably got to jump out very soon. I'm hoping that the stuff that we've spoken, there's so much that I really wanted to throw at there, but we just not enough time in the day.
Part 3.
There's going to have to be a part 3. It really, really has. Because I wanted to go on. I wanted to go more deeper into absenteeism, which is really dealing with parents that are missing from your children's lives. So what we'll do is we'll deal with here in terms of domestic violence. One thing I noticed this week, and it stirred a lot of memories for me and a few other people. Now, I don't know if any, and the thing is, I would never have watched that program if my sister hadn't messaged me, which was something called Small Acts. Did anybody watch that?
I've got it. I've recorded it.
I don't not watched it yet.
Right, then I can't say anything because
Can't say anything.
There's poignant in there for me. Okay. There's been a lot of uproar. I won't go into. There has been a lot of uproar. So I suggest that all 3 of you, when you get the chance, watch it. And
how can we watch it? What channel is it on?
It's on BBC. An iPlayer. Just have a look, and we can discuss it when we come back. I'm looking for us to be back roughly about 17th, 18th of December. So I've got people booked in around that time. So I've got blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to always do our ones around this time.
Yeah.
A month in, a month in. And cut a long story short, you know, there's scenes in it that was very poignant, and it's going to bring me to, I'm not saying that's what happened in it, but there was reminiscence of rape.
Okay.
There's reminiscence of rape. And
I've heard it, yeah.
Right. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to put it out there, and I know that, I mean, if anyone is watching, I'm hoping that people did tune in today or whatever the case may be. Well, I can see that they have. That touched me. Rape happens even if you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, and it does form again another part of domestic violence.
Sexual abuse.
Sexual abuse is another thing within a relationship.
That's one of the biggest.
Violence. Yeah, it's huge.
Because you're in a relationship. Anyway, we can go into it.
Yeah. we exactly. Until you go into, I think it's unfair for me to go into. But
can we address the comment in the chat before we go though? Just briefly, like if we've got 1 minute, it was just about the blaming social services blaming fathers.
Yes.
All I wanted to say is if there is anything to do with social services involvement, get yourself an advocate, because a lot of the time parents don't know that you can have an advocate present. Advocacy either. So get in touch with your local advocacy service and request for someone to support you during that process. That's all I wanted to say.
Awesome. I've got a thumbs up in there. I've definitely got a thumbs up in there. That is great advice. The program asked me, it's called Small Acts. And it really is, I'm not worried about the content of, that's okay, my lovely. She said, thank you. I'm not worried. If you watch it, I'm not so worried about what they were going on about. I'm talking about the stigma that was in that particular program. And as I said, there was a section of abuse, rape. There was connotations of all of these. And what it led is a few conversations with people I hadn't spoken to in a while. And this is what led me to I couldn't believe it had happened. And this is a subject that I wanted to speak about this week. That awoke a lot of people. Because, I hope Black people do not kill me or ostracize me for this, but rape was prominent, and there are guys still walking around to this day, and I'm holding my head up because I can prove it, are walking around today within that era, within that whole sound system era, who are well known, and they have taken advantage of women who have told them no. Sorry?
You say that. I said you say that. And there's also guys I know from not even the craze time, but they are related to the old deep Essex, who've done it, and they've got friends in the police force. They're all right. You all right, mate? Yeah, you all right, mate?
So there you go.
Everybody's all right, mate.
There you go. It's institutionalized.
Yeah.
And what I cannot get my head around is wow, I can't believe I'm even saying this.
Is that going to be a part 4, maybe?
Yeah,
I'm just going to do part 4. I'm going to have to excuse myself.
I stood up to be counted when I was attacked a long time.
You.
Right?
Bless you.
And that takes a lot of bravery.
Took me to the police station. Do you understand? So without even going on any further, because this is not even about me, but if I'm going to be honest and telling people to speak up and talk about violence and, and speak about any violence that's ever happened to them, then I have to stand up in my own truth.
Absolutely.
Only a handful of people. Sorry?
We respect that.
Right.
Because my thing is, I said it to people time and time again. I'm not going to go see a therapist if they've never had therapy. I'm not going to go and talk to somebody. I've had an alcohol problem. So if you've got an alcohol problem, you want to chat, come, let's talk. I can tell. I haven't had whatever But alcohol problem come. Let me tell you how it starts. Let me tell you how it feels. Let me tell you how you cope. You know, let me tell you, you become a functioning alcoholic. But if we don't speak on it, it's still a taboo. It's not a taboo once it's out.
Absolutely.
But ladies, I'm gonna love you, and I really have to go. I'm so sorry.
No, we're absolutely out of time. So I just want to say to you goodbye, my darling. I'll see you in the 3 weeks' time. We'll have part 3, but I want to say, yeah, we look like we need part 3, ladies.
Definitely, I'm down for that.
God bless you, my darling. Speak to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Ladies, thank you. As I said, we could go on. But it looks like it's part 3.
Can I just say, Valerie, what you just did was very brave. I can see it caused a little bit of friction before you said it. So well done for pushing past that friction.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of you, because it's platforms like this, and wherever it goes and whoever sees it knows that it's okay to speak their truth too.
Yeah.
Well
yeah.
done.
I just couldn't. I thought I can't sit here, and I'm actually holding back words and saying, what do you think? What do you think? So the best thing for me to say to anyone that ever goes back and watch this, I am a victim of it. I have been in that scenario. I've never really decided to go and tell anyone in Joe Public. Probably 2 people know. Well, right now, 5, 6, 10 or 10 people that's watched may know. But that show woke everything, every being of the incident. And when people were making the uproar and saying, nah, that never happened, I had to say, how dare you speak for me?
Yeah.
Dare you say that never happened? Because I have been there, and I lost a friend who died, went to her grave because she was in a party, and the guy took her out of the party, raped her. And she and I didn't understand where she disappeared to. So, and it literally, the same guy came to attack me after. He got away. And then I had another attack. This is what I'm trying to say to you.
Yeah.
So the first one I missed, the second one I got caught with, right? This guy, she was so ashamed that this guy had assaulted her. And she picked up her bags, left her job, and moved away. I couldn't find her for months, days, and weeks. And God rest her, because she's now in her grave. And you know what she did? She found out she was dying, and I could not find her. She just cut me dead. And I kept thinking, how did you just get up and disappear? I'm asking your family. And she rang me out the blue, and this is going to be the end of the story, and we'd go. And she rang me out the blue, and I said, oh my God, you're back, where you been? And she said, I've been abroad. She said, I've got something to tell you. So I said, oh, I'm going to cook, come round. Yeah, let's do this. And she turned up. She looked amazing. She'd lost a lot of weight. And she said, the night we went out to a party, and I said, yeah, what happened? You just disappeared. You left me. I didn't see you. She said, blah, 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 took me outside, kidnapped me away from the party, raped me. And when he was doing it, he kept calling your name. I don't even know him. But because from what I gathered, it was by association. He didn't like someone, and because I knew someone, he was going to get anyone that was around that person. This girl suffered 10 years knowing that someone had done that to her, and the person was calling out my name, and it was like you could see where. And so she packed her bag, her jobs, and left the country. And before she died 6 weeks later. 6 weeks later. And I was able to then tell her, because I never told anyone, the same guy who attacked you attacked me. But I went to the police station. Do you understand? It happens. It happens out there, folks. And I am fed up of people hiding this shit.
Yeah. It's like that guy that's been in the papers. Not the papers, in the news, in the scene.
Are you talking about Rodney P?
No, this what's Steph London's brother.
Oh, Dutch Vele. Oh, I can't condone that. That's enabling. I'm sorry. That's enabling. And that goes on regularly. Not with him. It goes on.
Just in the community, in the scene, But I'm
with R. Kelly.
Definitely do another one because I am also gonna have to go as well.
Thank you guys. I've shared enough. I'm going to.
Thank you for being honest as well.
Yeah, we will 3.5 weeks from now. Let's do this before the Christmas special. We'll try and make it a bit more jovial. It was a quite intense one today.
But sometimes it's needed. People need to hear the truth.
Yeah. Rachel, lovely to have you. God bless you. I've let everyone know about the book. We'll keep pushing it for you. Yeah,
congratulations.
Rhyana, I love you to bits. I'm going to let everybody know, and everyone asks is saying, plans.
Yes.
Greg, it's her company. Please reach out. A name is there. Let me take this off. It's Rhyana. You got Rachel. You got Dr. Rachel Gow, Rhyana Ebank-Babbs, and we had Franchesca Pingman on earlier. Good night, ladies.
Good night.
Thank you for having me. Take care. Have a blessed and beautiful evening.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. No show ever goes the way you want it to be, ever. I'm hoping that people can still catch the end of this. My Wi-Fi is telling me that you got no service. But for anyone that's left in the chat room and anyone else that's out there, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, my lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you for the people that shared, who touched in. I don't know if it was anything that anyone could take away from it. It's no point me having a show called Standing in My Truth if I'm not going to stand in my own truth and tell the truth. I went around the peripheral because it's just the best that I could get out right now. So I want to thank my guest one more time for coming on today. There will be a part 3 in 3.5 weeks' time. On Saturday, I've got the Saturday Sports Show with Gabriel Zakuani. Those who don't know him, trust me, he is a character. He's commentator on the BBC, and it's going to be lovely to have him in the house and just talk everything sports and anything that's droll. I've also got the lovely Anne-Marie Wickham, who is a hypnotherapist, body therapist, who's coming in next week to give you everything that's all gooey and lovely about ourselves, our mind, body, and soul. I've got CKP joining me next Friday on the music show, which is the fortnightly music shop. So we're all going to get our groove on. So tonight was difficult. I knew it'd be a difficult show. I was trying my best to see if I could just get through it. So for anyone else that's still logged in, thank you for joining me tonight. Standing My Truth, the motivational show. And hopefully there was stuff that you could take away. Good night. God bless.